Throughout Mushoku Tensei, Hitogami does everything he can to influence Rudeus. He appears in his dreams, offers him advice, changes the course of his decisions, and time after time, he always seems to know exactly what's going to happen next. At first, it feels like Hitogami has complete control over everything. But there's one detail that changes the entire story. Hitogami was never truly afraid of the Rudeus who exists in the present. The one he fears is the Rudeus of the future. So why would someone capable of seeing countless possible futures fear someone who hasn't even become a threat yet? At the beginning of the story, Rudeus is nowhere near powerful enough to challenge Hitogami. He's simply an incredibly talented child. Someone with enormous potential, but certainly not someone who should worry a being like the human god. And yet, Hitogami begins watching him from a very young age. Which raises an important question. If Rudeus wasn't dangerous yet, what exactly was Hitogami trying to stop? The first answer seems obvious. Maybe it was simply his strength. As Rudeus grows older, his magic reaches an unbelievable level. He defeats incredibly powerful opponents, builds alliances with influential people, and eventually becomes known throughout the world. But that still doesn't explain everything. Across Orsted's countless loops, there must have been warriors just as powerful as Rudeus. Legendary swordsmen, kings, emperors, exceptional mages. Yet none of them made Hitogami act the way he does toward Rudeus. So strength can't be the real answer. There's something much more important. Rudeus changes people. It sounds insignificant, but it may actually be his most dangerous ability. Roxy's entire life changes because of him. Sylphiette follows a destiny she never would have reached alone. Eris grows into someone completely different. Rudeus begins restoring the honor of his race. Zenoba finally meets someone who truly understands him. Cliff becomes a far greater mage. Ariel gains allies she never should have had. Every one of these changes creates new consequences. Consequences that never existed in previous timelines. But even that doesn't fully explain Hitogami's fear. Because changing a few people's lives doesn't necessarily change the outcome of the war. There's a third piece to the puzzle. Rudeus creates possibilities. And that's exactly what makes him so dangerous to someone like Hitogami. For thousands of years, Hitogami has always won because he could predict almost every important decision. His greatest power was never simply seeing the future. It was guiding people toward the future he wanted. But Rudeus begins creating outcomes that don't follow that path. An unexpected friendship. An impossible alliance. A reckless decision. Someone survives who was supposed to die. Every small change creates another possible future. And the more possible futures exist, the less control Hitogami has. But the biggest revelation comes later. Because Hitogami doesn't only fear what Rudeus does. He fears what Rudeus might become. This becomes much clearer when we meet old Rudeus. For the first time, we discover a timeline where Rudeus survives, learns the truth about Hitogami, and dedicates the rest of his life to opposing him. That revelation changes everything. Because now we understand that Hitogami isn't trying to stop his current enemy. He's trying to prevent that future from ever existing again. But that raises another question. If Hitogami already knows that future, why doesn't he simply eliminate Rudeus? The answer may reveal the greatest limitation of his power. Hitogami depends on people. He influences them, persuades them, manipulates them. But he rarely acts directly. And every time he tries to manipulate Rudeus, something unexpected happens. Rudeus learns. After every mistake, he changes. After every loss, he makes different choices. After every manipulation, he becomes even harder to control. That's exactly what causes Hitogami to lose his greatest advantage. Predicting someone who keeps growing is already difficult. Predicting someone who learns from every attempt to manipulate him is almost impossible. But there's one final detail that explains everything. Many fans believe Hitogami fears Rudeus because of his strength. In reality, he may fear something much greater. Rudeus represents the only future that never stops changing. While nearly everyone else follows similar paths across every timeline, Rudeus keeps creating entirely new possibilities. And among those possibilities, there's one where Hitogami finally loses. Maybe that's why he's watched Rudeus since childhood. Maybe that's why he constantly tries to manipulate his choices. Maybe that's why he can never simply ignore him. Because, in the end, Hitogami was never afraid of the Rudeus who exists today. He was always afraid of the man Rudeus could become. And for someone whose entire existence depends on controlling the future, nothing is more terrifying than a future he can no longer control. So what do you think? What's the real reason behind Hitogami's fear? Old Rudeus? His connection to Orsted? Or the fact that he keeps creating futures no one can predict? Let me know your theory in the comments.